Welcome to the Vintage Hollywood Archive channel. Legendary actress Hedy Lamarr was known in Hollywood as the most beautiful woman in the world, and various film roles made her famous, but she truly made history with her contribution to technical progress. Yet, apart from being a Hollywood icon, Hedy Lamarr had a varied and interesting life and was an accomplished scientific inventor. Why Hedy Lamarr decided to kiss any men for $25,000? Make sure to watch the video until the end and leave your thoughts in the comments. If you're new here, join our wonderful community by subscribing to the Vintage Hollywood Archive channel. Hedy Lamarr, Hollywood star and inventor. The most beautiful woman with incredible mind. Hedy Lamarr's life was punctuated by salacious rumors and public scandal, but it was her stunning looks and classic Hollywood glamour that continuously captivated audiences. Her international career began in scandal. She performed without clothes and was directed in such a way as to appear to be experiencing orgasm in the Czech film Ecstasy. She was 19. In her later years, her plastic surgery provided further fodder for tabloid gossip. For everyone but Lamarr, that is, for whom this long overdue recognition of her complex, fascinating life arrives more than half a century too late. A brilliant, free spirit, Lamarr gained fame as an actress, then a measure of notoriety. 6 marriages helped with that, although as far as the morality police were concerned, she arrived in Hollywood under a dark cloud of scandal. More on that in a bit. Then, she faded from view. In the heyday of the Hollywood studios, the popular joke about Hedy Lamarr was that she was so gorgeous that she need not concern herself with acting. Though the young Austrian émigré successfully parlayed her looks into Hollywood star power, she came to see her beauty as a curse, something that blinded onlookers to a far more vital attribute, a brilliant mind for mechanics. Who knew that she had invented a frequency hopping system to conceal Allied torpedoes from German locator systems? The science anticipated the technology that underlies Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. If Hedy Lamarr would be alive today, she might have become a top scientist, financing her studies with a modeling career. In her time, the world envisaged a woman's career as an object of desire rather than as an independent scientist. She was a Hollywood star who spent her nights developing a frequency-hopping communication system. She was the inventor of a precursor of Wi-Fi, who by day played Delilah under the direction of Cecil B. DeMille. She was the wife of a Jew who sold weapons to Hitler and Mussolini. She was an immigrant who told authorities in the US everything she knew about the weapons of the Axis powers. Unbeknownst to her fans and her detractors, she was also an inventor who helped create technology of amazing complexity that would lead to, among other things, a secure communications system technology that is used in presidential communications and to protect nuclear codes. But Hollywood was interested in her looks, her face, her beauty, the tabloid lifestyle. The way she was thought of at the height of her popularity, smart? Who cares? But those eyes. That is grossly unfair, of course, but not out of the ordinary in the annals of how women have been treated, particularly in entertainment. Studios wielded power not only over an actress's work, but the persona she presented to the public. They weren't painting a portrait of Lamarr's intellect. Any girl can be glamorous. All you have to do is stand still and look stupid, she said. She was born as Hedwig Eva Marie Kiesler on 9 November 1914 in Vienna, Austria-Hungary. She was the only child of Emil Kiesler, a successful bank director, and Gertrude Trude Kiesler, a pianist. An only child, Lamarr received a great deal of attention from her father, a bank director and a curious man, who inspired her to look at the world with open eyes. He would often take her for long walks where he would discuss the inner workings of different machines, like the printing press or streetcars. These conversations guided Lamarr's thinking, and at only 5 years of age, she could be found taking apart and reassembling her music box to understand how the machine operated. Meanwhile, Lamarr's mother was a concert pianist and introduced her to the arts, placing her in both ballet and piano lessons from a young age. Her governess tutored her in German, French, and Italian, but Kiesler was too intent on becoming an actress to stick with her education. She was interested in acting from a young age, and when she was 15, was discovered by the producer Max Reinhardt, who brought her to Berlin. She received training in theater and returned to Vienna, where she began to work in the film industry, starting out as a script girl before becoming an actress. This appointment led to work as an extra, and by the age of 18, she had the controversial lead role in Gustav Machadi's Ecstasy. The film told the simple story of a young woman whose husband is impotent, causing her to seek out the companionship of a younger man. 2 scenes were responsible for the film's notoriety and quick banning by Austrian censors. One, in which Lamarr runs without clothes through a sunlit forest. The other, a sex scene in which she seems to experience orgasm. Her intense facial expressions actually resulted from the application of a safety pin to her buttock by director Gustav Machadi. Lamarr later said that she had been a naive young woman pressured into doing these scenes, but cameraman Jan Stalik told Jan Christopher Horak of Cine Action that, as the star of the picture, she knew she would have to appear bare skin in some scenes. She never made any fuss about it during the production. Controversy and condemnation from Pope Pius XI temporarily halted Lamarr's film career. Hitler banned it, and America gave it a limited run years later. However, many considered Ecstasy a great piece of artistic work, and subsequently, the film gained worldwide recognition. Lamarr had made a name for herself. Lamarr's life story is indeed remarkable. She married her first husband in 1934 at age 19. Unhappily married to an affluent, domineering munitions manufacturer, Lamarr fled their home by bicycle in the middle of the night. She once said, "I knew very soon that I could never be an actress while I was his wife. He was the absolute monarch in his marriage. I was like a doll. I was like a thing, some object of art which had to be guarded and imprisoned, having no mind, no life of its own." She was incredibly unhappy, as she was forced to play host and smile on demand amongst Mandel's friends and scandalous business partners, some of whom were associated with the German Party. She escaped from Mandel's grasp in 1937 by fleeing to London, but took with her the knowledge gained from dinner-table conversation over wartime weaponry. An often repeated story holds that Mandel tried to buy and destroy every outstanding copy of Ecstasy, but this is thought to be legend rather than fact. Whether out of revulsion toward her husband's politics or from sheer restlessness, Lamarr packed a single suitcase with jewelry, drugged her maid, and fled to Paris and then London in 1937. That September, she sailed for New York. When she emigrated to the U.S. in the lead-up to World War II and caught the eye of MGM studio head Louis B. Mayer on the ship from London to New York. On board, she began negotiating with producers who had signed Swedish actress Greta Garbo several years earlier and was on the lookout for exotic European talent. Lamarr had refused Mayer's contract offer in London, but by the time the ship docked in New York, she had a $500 a week contract and the new name of Hedy Lamarr. Up to that point, she had used Hedy Kiesler. Mayer devised the name, inspired by that of silent film actress Barbara Lamarr. The Viennese beauty soon settled into life in Beverly Hills and socialized with luminaries, including John F. Kennedy and Howard Hughes, who provided her the equipment to run experiments in her trailer during downtime from acting. It was in this scientific environment that Lamarr found her true calling. Lamarr dated Hughes, but was most notably interested with his desire for innovation. Her scientific mind had been bottled up by Hollywood, but Hughes helped to fuel the innovator in Lamarr. While she had an inventing table set up in her house, the small set allowed Lamarr to work on inventions between takes. Hughes took her to his airplane factories, showed her how the planes were built, and introduced her to the scientists behind the process. Lamarr was inspired to innovate as Hughes wanted to create faster planes that could be sold to the US military. She bought a book of fish and a book of birds and looked at the fastest of each kind. She combined the fins of the fastest fish and the wings of the fastest bird to sketch a new design for Hughes' planes. Upon showing the design to Hughes, he said to Lamarr, "You're a genius." Lamarr was indeed a genius as the gears in her inventive mind continued to turn. She once said, "Improving things comes naturally to me." She went on to create an upgraded stoplight and a tablet that dissolved in water to make a soda similar to Coca-Cola. However, her most significant invention was engineering as the United States geared up to enter World War II. Upon the release of her first American film, Algiers, co-starring Charles Boyer, Lamarr became an immediate box office sensation. Often referred to as one of the most gorgeous and exotic of Hollywood's leading ladies, Lamarr made a number of well-received films during the 1930s and 1940s. Notable among them were Lady of the Tropics, co-starring Robert Taylor, Boomtown with Clark Gable and Spencer Tracy, Tortilla Flat, co-starring Tracy, and Samson and Delilah, opposite Victor Mature. She was reportedly producer Hal Wallace's first choice for the heroine in his classic 1943 film Casablanca, a part that eventually went to Ingrid Bergman. Throughout World War II, Lamarr was a fixture on American movie screens with such films as Come Live With Me, Ziegfeld Girl, and the steamy White Cargo, in which Lamarr played a mixed-race prostitute on an African rubber plantation, although censors demanded that reference to her character's ethnicity be removed from the script. With such films as 1943's The Heavenly Body, the title ostensibly referred to astronomy, Lamarr emerged in the first rank of screen sex symbols. A poll of Columbia University male undergraduates ranked Lamarr as the actress they would most like to be marooned with on an island, and in 1942, Lamarr participated in the World War II mobilization effort by offering to kiss any man who would purchase $25,000 in war bonds. She raised $17 million with 680 kisses. She was a famous Hollywood star who would finish performing on set with Clark Gable, Jimmy Stewart, Spencer Tracy, and then go back to her trailer and work on her inventions. The patent she filed with co-inventor George Antheil aimed to protect their wartime invention for radio communications to hop from one frequency to another so that Allied torpedoes couldn't be detected by the Germans. To this day, neither Lamarr nor her estate have seen a cent from the multi-billion-dollar industry her idea paved the way for, even though the US military has publicly acknowledged her frequency-hopping patent and contribution to technology. Lamarr's work as an inventor was barely publicized in the 1940s, an oversight that Bombshell director and Reframed Pictures co-founder Alexandra Dean believes fits into the narrow narrative for movie stars in those days. It would be nice to say that she got rich off her invention and lived happily ever after, but that's a Hollywood ending and not a Hollywood one. She wasn't an American citizen, and the government seized her patent as the work of an alien. She never got a dime. Lamarr, however, was equally unhappy in Hollywood. It was difficult for me to grow up with the person that I saw basically destroyed by an industry, says Lamarr's son, Anthony Loder. The wonderful, happy, carefree Viennese Hedy was morphed into the movie star that had to be perfect and look perfect constantly. Her last film under her MGM contract came in 1945, after which she left MGM and set up her own production company, becoming one of the first female producers in Hollywood. Lamarr was no longer the Hollywood A-lister she once was. Sadly, it was not meant to be, and her follow-up movies didn't fare so well. Lamarr's career went into decline, and her final film appearance came in 1958. Up to this point, her life had already been a roller coaster ride, and in retirement, the ride continued to show no signs of coming to an end. By 1966, she'd been a regular in the tabloids, fueled by the divorce of her sixth and last husband and recent arrest for shoplifting, although the charges were dropped. Litigation was again a theme in the 1970s. She filed a multi-million-dollar lawsuit against Warner Brothers for using her name without permission as a running gag. Although accounts differ, she apparently settled out of court for an undisclosed fee. By this time, Lamarr had also developed a crippling drug addiction. She had also become somewhat addicted to plastic surgery, becoming a victim of her era's ageist attitudes. She would often make suggestions to her surgeons to improve techniques, with many of her ideas becoming common methods of plastic surgery in the future. By the 80s, Lamarr had settled in Florida and withdrawn from the public eye. In 1991, she was again arrested for shoplifting, supposedly trying to take around $20 worth of eye drops and laxatives from a pharmacy. Again, no charges were filed. Her remaining years were spent in seclusion, often only communicating with those on the outside, including her family and children via the telephone. On January 19, 2000, Lamarr passed away of heart disease. She was 85. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you are new here.